What's up to everybody on our group chat there as we get this thing started. Hope everybody's having a fantastic month so far, whether you're watching this now or later. Today is currently September 27th, the afternoon. Doing a little bit of errands, make sure we get all perfected up for a great episode locking and loading. Appreciate everybody who jumps on. Always be sure to hit that subscribe button. Smash a like on these videos, guys. We want to get these nice and pumped up.
Alrighty. So I just reached out to you, bud tenders. Hopefully you guys are watching. If you are, go ahead and interact. We'll be willing to answer questions here live. If not, go ahead and interact afterwards or while I see you at the shop. So
cool. Well, what's up, High Horse community? Hope everybody's having a great day. This is Dr. Joaquin and Bennett Castro over here, your directors of training for High Horse Cannabis. We are excited to be with you guys today. To our general community out there, thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to create a show that's both engaging and enlightening for everybody, whether or not you're in the cannabis industry or if you just kind of want a little bit of exposure. We've got something for each and every single one of you, but we are excited to be here. Again, guys, we're starting off with our strain drops for today. We're very excited to announce, guys, we've got $100 ounces back.
Woo!
Or dropped. Excuse me. Yeah. I don't know if we had them for a brief moment, but Bennett, talk to us.
We had them out for a bit, but we have them back. And then Animus, is especially one that we were awaiting back. A lot of you guys were excited about the strain drops. We had a bunch of varieties, and you guys seem to really like them. So the $100 Animus cannabis ounces are back, and one that we currently have right now in our hands is the Alien Kush Cake. Yeah, Alien Kush Cake.
Alien Cough Kush Cake. Cough cake.
So that means it's a strain cross between ice cream cake, strawberry cough, and Alien Kush.
And for you guys in there, take a look at that beautiful bud. We'll talk a little bit about Animus cannabis and everything here. Absolutely has a nice nose on it.
Oh yeah.
Very excited, but $100 ounces, everybody. Got those coming out. 120 after recreational taxes are done, yes. But medical, guys, you are hitting those good prices for sure.
For sure.
And again, if you do not have a medical card, I believe our High Horse bud tenders know exactly how to guide you to get one, and we appreciate everybody for encouraging all of that. Save money on taxes. You can turn $120 into $100, $20 for anything else, especially more frequency of visits. Those taxes definitely start eating you alive.
Oh gosh.
So
yes, honestly. And you can definitely stop by, check these out, check out what other strains we have dropped today. But we also have all of our other strains.
Yes, and to those of you who are aware, up here we've got a QR code linking to all of our High Horse online dispensary locations there. We are in Chaparral, in Las Cruces in our 2 locations. So you can scan that QR code, shop any of our products at any given time. Obviously, currently the deal of the day is this $100 ounce from Animus, and that's going to be rolling. May not be there in 2 weeks. If you guys are shopping fiercely, don't wait. Definitely go and capitalize on that. So make sure you do. Otherwise, pre-ordering online definitely saves some time. Our drive-thrus and the 24 hours
here in Cruces
literally changes it up. I hope you guys truly understand the benefits of not having to get out of your car. I think we get so spoiled nowadays with that.
That convenience is honestly becoming widely spread, whether it be getting your coffee, your breakfast, your healthy snacks, but now even your cannabis. So get your medicine, get your $100 ounce, send someone our way if you know that they smoke big. So $100 ounces.
Yes, and delivery options included as well. So
especially in Las Cruces. So even delivery. And once you get delivery that's over $100, it's free delivery. So get your ounce and get free delivery.
Hey, that's great.
That's a great deal.
For sure. So Animus Cannabis, they're out of Aztec, New Mexico, sun-grown cannabis. We're going to give you guys a little bit of some highlights over here. We'll share you what we've got their Instagram page pulled up because that's their best place to show some of their content. Sun-grown, so outdoor grown, guys. What you see here is grown out there. Pretty cool and unique. All in the same. No, we'll do it like this. And so for everybody there, granted, yes, they have some of their own rosin and stuff. Here,
Their
Got that flower and
greenhouses.
looking these beautiful greenhouses. Exactly.
The ladies are filling in nice.
Nice and sun grown. That's their drone shots on their farm. They got a pretty big farm up there in Aztec, New Mexico. You know, that sun grown, sun soil cultivation techniques where they are definitely highlighting, you know, using beneficials in the soil. Some people are soilless. If you guys are aware of that, usually most of your indoor cannabis grows are going to be soilless. They will have a medium that is not soil, right?
It's a
So if it's a
hydroponic.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly, cocoa perlite, hydroponics, and those different setups in there change obviously the growing environment for the plant. But you know, these guys really like to have that beneficial soil with the micronutrients. So it's a very, very natural um, product in that regard. Granted, you know, you can have some very pristine calculated grows with indoor, and this not to say that outdoor is better than indoor. Some people truly have different opinions.
Honestly, and I think it's just a spectrum. Here it's the full spectrum podcast, but that's where we get to talk about all of the things. And outdoor grown is it can't be mimicked. You can't mimic the sun exactly, and you cannot mimic what soil does exactly, and what soil and the sun do together. So we can control the environment inside and even remove the soil and protect. But these ladies look nice and protected with this greenhouse, those netting. So it looks like it'll be, and this product shows for it. It has a really nice smell to it. A lot of outdoor and grown, especially out here in New Mexico,
Growing
can
trees.
yeah, it can smell very earthy. It can smell very almost like dirt, dusty. But this stuff smells great. It smells very pungent. The terpenes are still very much activated. So they're definitely doing their stuff right. And this natural sun grown, you can't beat that for $100.
Exactly. And looking here, like big sticky colas, love this time of year. Like guys, look at those top nugs and those top colas there. I mean, granted, you know, this is exactly what you're getting off of that once it's been dried and cured. You know, that sun up in Aztec, New Mexico, northwestern New Mexico is going to be the closest thing probably to an outdoor Colorado type of grow that you're going to have there. Guarantee you these genetics are probably from the region, and that's probably why they're so dang successful up there. They do have a different sun season than we do down here in even southern New Mexico. We've got a little bit more sunlight and things
Oh
like
yeah.
that. But, you know, the ones that can perfect and craft it and that have been able to do that up there for a long period of time. I don't know the entire history of Animus cannabis there, but you can definitely see an ode to skill and appreciation there, because to do acres of trees like that, it takes a true green thumb, to say the least, guys.
For sure, for sure.
So make sure to get those $100 ounces. Check out Animus Cannabis. Obviously, their Instagram here, and Animus_cannabis. Guys, like cannabis is kind of like wine to some of those degrees, right? Like, doesn't that remind you of a grape field where you're going to go visit your, right? Like, stomp
See,
on some grapes,
uh-huh,
have the
see where it came
experience.
from, like see the family, the cultivar, everything.
Yes, and it takes, as you can see, guys, an incredible amount of work, especially when you're outdoor. Things such as the nature of whatever could be outside, worms, bugs, even drift from neighboring farms or other things, even in the wind, right, can affect the quality of the plant, and they can, you know, really affect different parts of the grow. But these guys really have it
Outdoors
under
have a lot
control.
of challenges for sure, especially running into the risk of herming a plant, making it, yeah, that runs a risk, especially because now New Mexico has become a very cannabis friendly community. What if a neighboring that a resident of that area is growing but doesn't have too much knowledge on growing, and they have a plant that is not just a female plant, it's also a male plant, and it's giving off seeds, and so there's challenges, and for them to be giving out some quality outdoor product, it just shows, it shows a lot for the grow itself. And we got to show recognition, and for this cultivation, cultivation takes a lot of hard work and
Yep,
tweaking.
exactly. Fertile soil. It takes a very hard time here. As you can even see, it looks like almost some sort of hay or something that they have right there on top, but they've got to keep working that soil all the time, and it changes over time, right? The pH of the soil is why you want to have it perfected in the hydroponic grows there inside. You have to keep everything in a very, very finite temperature. Cannabis, again, a phytoremediator. It sucks whatever out of the soil. It can clear nuclear waste out of the ground. But for these purposes, you got to feed it good stuff so you can grow big trees. And these guys know how to do that. And that's cool concept there for you guys. I mean, bud tenders, right? Studying the different types of ways and just being mindful of the different types of ways your cannabis is grown is definitely the top of the priority list that we want out of you guys. And over here, sun grown, beautifully fertile soil that they cultivate up there out of Aztec, New Mexico, guys. It almost doesn't get much better for an outdoor grow other than this. There's a lot of different variables in the obviously outdoor season. You can do can't go year round, right? You can't do a lot of things unless you've insulated and created greenhouses. Granted, these are not greenhouse type setups here. So probably this is gonna be their closer to their Croptober harvest. This is round 2 of some really good stuff.
Looks like, check that comment out. It says that they've been drinking 2 gallons every 24 hours. That's wild.
8.5 foot tall star guava in 7-gallon pots.
And we've had that star guava in the shop, so that's pretty crazy.
So exactly, like that's a beautiful strain there, guys. As you do see, right, a very tall, skinny plant that's going to be more of a sativa-based plant. Granted, everything right now is going to be hybrid to some degree, outweighing either sativa or indica. But what you see there, when you see a tall plant already, right, you don't see big fat fan leaves. You see a lot of length. You see a big, slender, beautiful plant, obviously. 8.5 foot is a monster, guys. If you ever try growing cannabis in your house, I mean, even the cannabis little tents that you buy for your house, I mean, most of those top off at like 6.5 or 7 feet standard just for the rooms and things like that. And a lot of people can't even get their plants to grow that high. And the sun does a really, really good job at that. I mean, it really does.
I wonder if that goes into, so it's a straw, cover crop and straw.
Cover crop and straw going down. So these
no-till. So this is a no-till grow. Okay, that's I feel like that's also important to point out.
They just keep adding to that soil and doing whatever it is that they do in terms of their technique. But you see those cover crops on the side right there. Those do help from weeds and other bad plants from growing in, obviously in between your rows, which can thus attract other bad beneficials or bad pests, pests or whatever it might be towards your cannabis plants. So you do want to have a healthy, right, undergoing here. These pots here are probably 25 gallons. These are pretty big, maybe even 50-gallon pots. And that's how you get those trees.
Oof. That's awesome.
And cannabis plants grow as big as the pot that you put them into. So again, a lot of those times, those growers that are growing inside and indoors are like, why aren't I growing trees? Well, you've got a 3 or 5 gallon pot in there. You're not going to let those roots aren't going to be able to support such a big structure.
It's like an animal.
Feels like it makes sense, right? But guys, very, very cool. Cool technique. Animus Cannabis, $100, guys, over here at High Horse, and we're excited to keep those rolling out. So make sure we get everybody locked in on those. So spotlighting that, very good. Smells good. Hope everybody gets that, and get that med card. Save money every single time.
For sure.
I need to renew mine, so I'm the worst.
Yeah.
Talking to the choir, I guess. But again, cool, guys. So moving on to the next portion of the show, I'm a little bit biased towards these ones, but all the same, we're talking and highlighting our Farm True 1-to-1 gummies. The reason that we're doing this, guys, this is the second episode of the Full Spectrum podcast, guys, and we are super excited to advocate for cannabis. And the industry's in a funny point right now, because the people who have been using cannabis their whole lives, granted, up until the last 2 years, you've had to do it in hiding. And now you can be an advocate, you can be a free user, you can be happy, you spread your wings and fly, right? But for everybody else, that's like 50% of the entire country, and even our state and town, people have not tried cannabis. They might be cannabis curious, cannabis confused, cannabis naive to whatever degree that might be. And, people do not consider it until, you're sitting there at the dinner table with somebody that might you might trust, that's going to give you a opinion about it, tell you how that made them feel, give you some sort of reason to break and shatter those barriers. And this is something that we are talking about today because, again, most of us are probably so far into the cannabis industry that we don't necessarily, you know, like, deal in our inner circles with people who don't use cannabis that much, right? It's probably, you know what I mean? Um, and this is the word I'm not exactly like trying to promote or anything, but like stoner cliques that have been stoner cliques, right, throughout their lives probably have stayed together. They've had to band against whatever it is and probably, use their little circles and outlets of people, right? Your tribe.
Your little tribe, your little clique that you get together with, and you have your common use.
Yes, exactly. So think about your tribe, like whether, whoever that may be. And for some people, maybe they are lucky enough that that is their family. But, to whoever that is, you've had to hide under a rock for however many years until then. And so maybe coming out of your tribe and, advocating or whatever that might be may not have been at the top of your priority list. And that's totally okay. And we get that. But for bud tenders and everybody else, we want to keep, expanding our reach. We want to, bring people into our realm in a gentle, healing manner. And, Farm True, my company, is why I'm obviously very excited about that, because I know where we are at as an industry in such a premature phase that, guys, we still want to encourage new users. We want to pull people off of the booze bottle, right?
Oh.
We don't want people drinking themselves to
pills.
death. We want to pull them off the pills. Exactly. The pharmacist right here. Get them off the benzos, get them off the opioids, get them off the Ambien. We don't need it. And, basically any of those things, alcohol, prescription drugs, you can keep your job and take those things. You don't have to have, you don't have to get fired. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who have, right, maybe on the fence with your employment right now, or, your families or whatever, or if you know somebody from your outer tribe or your tribe that might know somebody like that, those are the people that we are trying to target with this product. Because, and for more experienced users, we'll give you more of the reason too, but one-to-ones, guys, I mean, CBD helps to attenuate THC. We talked about it in the first episode, right? It helps to minimize that effect of THC. When you do have new users that are trying to shatter we have to shatter a lot of false beliefs about cannabis. What are the preconceptions when it comes to stigma or dose effect or
hallucinogenic?
Exactly.
Even then, like there's so many bad stories out there from different people that have gotten things from even unreliable sources. So you cannot confirm that it was only cannabis that the person was consuming.
Right.
So now, you can say, I have this reliable source to this person who is a beginner, and say, look, even then, this Farm True is a pharmacist-run company that is dosing out cannabis products. That if that doesn't help someone ease their beginner lifestyle, and then from there you can show them, first podcast or even just proof. CBD can counteract the effects. And so what happens when we mix it? The one-to-one effect.
So we've got the one-to-one, right? Spider-Man and Spider-Man, CBD and THC, both on opposite sides of the pole, right? CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors, both of, THC affects CB1, CBD affects primarily CB2, but CBD also has a little bit of effect on that CB1 receptor, affecting the way that the THC will interact with it. Does help to slightly minimize that so you can enjoy the healing effects of cannabis without some of those extra added psychological effects. But some people don't want to be hit by a Mack truck with a head change or a high to some of that degree, but you want to take cannabis to help reduce some spinal pain, to help to sleep a little better, right?
Anxiety.
To help take that anxiety and relaxation up. That's why we call it relax, right? You got to be able to calm a little bit of inflammation with the CBD, add a little bit of relaxation with THC, combined with CBD to help tone that down even more. Guys, that's very beginner friendly.
It's what people call the golden ratio. I feel that's what you want to introduce people with when they don't necessarily understand the effects of what they're going to be getting. They don't know how THC hits them, but they've tried a CBD gummy, 1-to-1 golden ratio. It just helps, like he explained. It affects one of the receptors and one of the others at the same time, so it evens out everything.
And baby boomers, right? We know you guys are oftentimes who have lived a life through the stigma of that. So those of you who were low-key baby boomer cannabis users this whole time, this conversation isn't for you, okay?
Mm-mm.
But it might be if you were trying to convince somebody to try cannabis. If you saw somebody suffering in life through whatever it might be, and you want to offer perhaps a little bit of hope and healing, right? Maybe, right, cannabis can actually be that for them. And
For
again, we don't call it a magic pill. We don't call it anything like that. But the industry is still so young, right? It's still federally illegal. It's still a lot of things. But right, some of the, I guess, friction to all of that is things like lobbying, like big tobacco, big pharma, opioids, alcohol, all the reasons that their revenues might, decrease by the rise of something like cannabis is the reason that it's slow to get off the ground, and that, the feds can't get it completely unlocked yet. And that's okay. So we're still in this time. And in that time, you still have, so many people who might have a misconception about what cannabis could be, have been on the fence about it. Guys, at High Horse, we've done such an incredible job at establishing a reputation that people trust us. People will go to us. People see our stores. People see our drive-thrus and our commitment out there and what we try to do. And, that's a very, very, very good place for us to adopt new users, to convert an alcohol user or a pill user to a cannabis user, or to take down that alcohol dose, take down the opioid dose, take down the benzo dose, or get off of any of it or all of it completely because you could try something.
Because it's your alternative. A lot of people don't understand that that's their next alternative. People put all of these alternatives out here. Your pharmacist can even give you your alternatives of the different medications you can try out. They can put you on cocktails to see what works best for you. But there's also cannabis that's an alternative, and there's cannabis cocktails you have to try and find. If CBD and THC isn't your ratio, you can also try CBG and THC,
Yep.
or CBN and THC, or remove the THC entirely. Maybe the THC is what your body doesn't like, or something something you and your body, the THC isn't something that reacts well. So you can try out other ratios. It's just trying to figure out and find your dose, finding your cannabinoids.
Exactly. And that's where, guys, some of the highlights of the product definitely that we really like about it, the consistency of the gummies. We've gotten it really down to a light and sweet, very fluffy gummy. Some of these other gummies that you see, you'll pull them out of the packets and you're pulling them apart from each other. They feel kind of really sticky and odd. That's easier to make that kind of product than this. And it took us a long time. When we first started, we were doing bears. When it was just CBD, we had to switch out of the bears because, of course, it's advertising to children. Pisses me off, but it is what it is. And there's
a lot of regulations. There's so many, and that's the thing about the cannabis industry too, is that aside from trying to combat stigmas, we have to fight too many regulations. And look, consistency,
pulls,
perfect.
Minus heating them up.
Mm-hmm.
You got, coated, consistent. It's the square. I'll give the square. It's easier to dose because it's a square. Mm-hmm. So you can cut it. You can literally cut it with a knife. People do, and it's totally cool. So what happens when you cut it? All of a sudden, you've got 4/4 of 1-to-1. Then you have the absolute perfect argument, guys. Perfect argument for new users, because what did we say last week? 2.5 milligrams can cause a head change. Well, when you quarter this up, all of a sudden you have 2.5 milligrams. That's the threshold dose, but you have it paired with THC. So in the 1-to-1, you're in a really, really good spot at a new user getting a starter dose the first time. What would you bet on? I would put all my chips in the basket with this. I wouldn't give them a puff of this. I wouldn't give them a 500 milligram bar. You don't give them a hit of a dab, or a vape.
Yeah, the vape, everything's too concentrated. Everything else will be far too concentrated or far too focused on the THC market. This gives you that perfect ratio of CBD. And like you mentioned, once you cut it up into 4 squares, it's that perfect dose of both of the ratios.
Yes, and basically, think about it, guys, because if you have a bad experience the first time with cannabis, how likely are you to go back, especially anytime soon? So you want to start people off right. And I know it's funny in the friend group to be like, oh, I'm going to get so toked up that they're going to freaking whatever. And we're all going to laugh and everybody's going to have a good time. And, to some, bud tenders, I know you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? So we're thinking of the other people, right? Of
Even
not
then,
doing that to
you
people.
never know when that person will just never go back to whatever you
Gave them
Yeah.
ever. And guys, at High Horse, that is what we are not. We are advocates for safe use, obviously honest and integrity behind that, good, responsible producers, whether it's us, whether it's Animas, like there's good people in the industry that are putting out good products and consistent products. From our side, we had liked being a pharmacist formulated brand where we could dial in some of the recipes and at least look at the dosing and our justification for doing what we have done. We do have, again, CBD, THC, 1-to-1-to-1s, this, that, and the other. But I really, really like the 1-to-1 for the beginner product. And that's our, challenge to our bud tenders and to our community out there is to try to convert somebody that's new, that you never tried before in cannabis. Try to have that conversation. What did we say earlier about, the way to break the ice there?
Yeah.
It was your
What is
interview question, right?
Yeah. What is your relationship with cannabis? And dive deep into what your relationship is personally, how you were raised, what you were told, what you believed as you were coming up, and where you changed and how that changed. And think about how it would have been different if someone would have told you something differently along the lines, and it was someone you trusted, like how he mentioned earlier. If it's someone you trust at the dinner table telling you, no, there's a misconception, you don't always have hallucinogenic effects when you consume cannabis. No, you don't always feel hungry and slouched on the couch. No, people can actually function. If you have a trusted person telling you phrases this way, and it might raise an eyebrow, might raise that curiosity of trying it out. And it's the way you have that relationship with cannabis. It's the way you portray your cannabis use to that person. So it's your challenge. It's how you will break the stigmas to your loved ones, to your close circles, to your families, your relatives, even the strangers at the stores that look at you funny when you have a cannabis logo on your shirt.
Yep.
And they want to ask about it.
It's about to be the holiday season. Everybody, you're going to be down at the dinner tables with family. The fall, everybody started to gather again.
The cousin walks.
The time, exactly, the cousin walks. The time to have those conversations, and maybe just reframe a little bit of the position that you would have entered in before, just to think, hey, how can we, actually have a meaningful conversation with somebody that may have not considered cannabis before. You don't have to have a true political conversation with somebody. You don't have to get into this, that, or the other. But if somebody was respective about what is your relationship with cannabis, and you can open up perhaps a safe space to have a conversation with somebody, then, who knows what that could open up in terms of a window of what kind of medications is somebody taking. You don't really ever know that by engaging with, whoever that may be. And granted, a lot of our bud tenders might be under the age of 30 that don't take a lot of medications, and that's understandable. But your parents do, your aunties and uncles do, right? So whether or not your place of employment, you've got other people that may or may not, right, be of that age there, it's an interesting place because a lot of people do take medication, and there's a lot of medication that has a lot more harmful effects, such as fall risk,
and
other
a lot
things.
of the medications are like for sleep or anxiety, and cannabis is very
substituted
for both of those reasons. I for years didn't know that my grandpa was taking anxiety medication, for I don't even know it, but now I opened up the conversation. I was like, Grandpa, if you try gummies, and I had him on a ratio of I broke up a quarter of a square of chocolate, and I would give him a full dropper of CBD oil. So it was a bigger dose because I was terrified of getting my grandpa in a euphoric mind state.
High.
Yeah. So but that was the best thing, and it helped him kind of wean off his sleeping medication, and hopefully the anxiety one. But man, to think that a lot of our family members are taking medications for something that we use cannabis for. We use it for anxiety, we use it for sleep, we use it for appetite. Like there's
Exactly. And it's not the drug deal. This is not the drug dealer pitch. It's just if you actually put some concept and thought into that, when, many of your adults over the age of 40 plus are all, not all, but many are on a prescription medication. A subset of them are on it for mental health reasons or, inflammatory and chronic pain reasons or whatever those might be, sleep. And guys, there's so many other natural alternatives that are out there that we have not, like, it's just an integrative approach. It really is. And when you look at the industry, at the fun, at the hoorah, at the let's party, at the reggaeton, all of it, it's all good. There's all a lot of hope, healing, and happiness there. But before you get to that point, you have to convert somebody to want to try it. And so whether they were converted in middle school 20 years ago, or whether they're, a 55-year-old adult right now that might be a little curious, or a retired adult that might be a little curious, it's going to take a little bit of a different approach. And
sure.
I guess, yeah, just being able to open up, get real with people, have at least something that you could refer to where you're not getting somebody zonked out on the bong and you're just happy and laughing about it and giddy because, all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool. Like now you're a part of the friend group. You've passed initiation, right? Like this is not that. We're saying stop doing that. We don't want to do that anymore.
Don't do that.
You just
don't do that to grandma.
don't do that to
Don't
grandma
do
and
that to
grandpa.
yes. No, like.
And even to your friends, guys, like, I mean, think about it. Maybe, they're going to tell their parents the same thing or whatever else, that, hey, I definitely, I couldn't even do it, mom and dad. Like, why would I put you on that?
Exactly. You'd never want your friends to have a terrible experience, especially with edibles. You hear that so often. I feel like if I've ever heard terror stories with cannabis, it's with edibles. They've consumed far too much edibles, and CBD. CBD has always been the answer, and people really haven't known that.
Which, exactly. And then we talked a little bit about the black pepper, eat it together, find your dose, starting low and going slow. This gives you all the perfect reasons to check all the boxes off. And that's why we like it. That's why we're talking about it today, guys. There's so many consumers right now in the cannabis industry. It's insane. But we should really be thinking about the other 50% of people who are not consuming anything yet. Let's get them consuming and healing in a better way. This is not to, start new addicts and do these things. This is to substitute guaranteed everything else that is going on in their lives, whether it's Ambien, whether it's Xanax, whether it's OxyContin. Guys, we can get rid of those things that cause a lot more disturbances driving, a lot more relationship problems, fall risk, the whole 9 yards. Hormonal effects.
There's alternatives out there. Just know there's alternatives, and safer ones at that.
Yes, and to our bud tenders, guys, announcement for everybody, and you'll be hearing it in the future too. Bud tender that sells the highest amount of Farm True products per store will be granted whatever, Farm True gummy product of your choice at the end of the month. We'll be hitting that every single month. Very much appreciate you guys. And at the same time, we do want to encourage new users, new family members. We've given you all the tools in the toolkit to do so. So spread your wings and fly, little ones. We know you can do it. Moving on to the next part of the segment here, we're going into questions.
Those bud tenders love their challenges, so hopefully we can see who shines bright on top for each store for this Farm True challenge. And let's see, let's dive deep. There was one question that kind of touches base on this one-to-one topic that we're at, and this came from Valley. It says, do one-to-one topicals have better results for pain relief versus inhalation methods? And they did also specify, pain relieving strain. So if you're using a pain relieving strain, let's say, for example, this alien cough cake was a pain relieving strain. I'm not too sure on the terpene and the benefits of it just yet. We did just get this in, I believe, yesterday, right?
Yep.
So I'm not too sure on the information on this just yet. But an inhalation versus a one-to-one topical, what has the better results?
So again, still going to call it person specific, guys. Definite topicals I like for direct action, but again, it takes different people have different effects, and for deep pain, I've heard suppositories get you some of the best spinal pain responses and things. But you got to think of action and response. And I know it's hard to break it down in these ways because we're all not necessarily doctors. And me as a pharmacist, I'm not, guys, this is my anecdotal thing that I put together. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, we don't have data that supports everything that is able to be said. So I have to say, after dealing with many of these instances and doing a lot of cannabis consultations and things, we look at, right, subjective history, what is going, just like a doctor, right? Like in a SOAP note, you're looking at subjective, objective assessment and plan. And so again, what's that patient feeling? What is their chief medical complaint? What can you measurably maybe see? Can you see that they're kinked up? Are they inflamed? Do you see bruising? What is going on with them, right, objectively? And then so you assess that and you're looking, hey, somebody, so-and-so can't sleep. And the reason that they can't sleep is because they have pain in their hip. Well, then you're looking at two different kind of things there. You're looking at, okay, sleep, which topical is not going to help with that, but hip pain, maybe. So, okay, you look at the hip pain, and again, still boils down to a lot of things. Our muscles cause a lot different pain than our nerves. Our nerves cause pain as well as our fascia. We've got 3 different little layers of situation there. And your body is still made up of 70% of water within all of that, right? Are you hydrated? Are you, what are these other things that are going on that could be causing spasm or pain or nerves? So again, what is the actual possible problem? Can you see an inflammation in that area? And generally, you're going to usually have some inflammation wherever that pain might be on the body. And for inflammation, you really like CBD. Again, so you look at the CBD and THC or the 1-to-1, CBD on the spot for places that have inflammation, it's a great idea. If you've got nerve pain, THC on the spot, great idea. But sometimes, right, like sciatica might drip all the way down the leg, but really it could be pressing from up there. And somebody might want to consider like, hey, well, this is just nerve. I should only put THC on it or only use THC. But, right, you're going to have muscle spasm, cramping, and inflammation at the site associated with it. So you're already thinking, what CBD can I put in there to help those inflammatory cascades and pathways? So it's a loaded question where you're saying, hey, well, should I use 1-to-1 or should I consider the strain? But you got to try to have that conversation with somebody to help them help themselves. So if you can know that THC is going to be great for nerves and CBD is going to be great for inflammation, can you do enough investigative work to make an intuitive, response to a patient? Whether, obviously, you're not going to make a recommendation because, legally we cannot, tell somebody medical advice, right? So want to make sure all our bud tenders are aware of that. But, within your medical means, like you can suggest and show like, hey, well, you've got this and this going on. I can tell you THC in this, CBD in this, maybe this and that, give them some options, and then boom, 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 let that person select their medicine.
Their dose. Exactly. And I feel like it kind of leads us into, you could layer. That person could eventually choose to layer. They could notice that, the topical does a good on-site job, but the smoking and the inhalation portion of it is going to hit a different part of, whether it relaxes the rest of the entire body. It alleviates the nerves. For the THC hits the nerves, and there's layering. You can layer your products to where it works best for you. And bud tenders, that's where you give them kind of their homework, their challenge at home. You tell them, try this, try both, and see what works best for you. And from there, they kind of find their best regimen, their best, their best combo.
Exactly. And that's where exactly the show and tell and the open-ended questions part of the interview with your patient or your customer at the point of sale does just take that extra time, try to understand those things. Granted, everybody understands different paces of different times and different people. It's all person by situation interaction. But again, when you have that person that does ask that extra question and you can see that they might be in pain and they're really trying to solve some problems, and maybe they're a little embarrassed about asking the question or don't know how to ask it, be um, gentle, but assertive in helping them find their words, right? Like whatever it may be that the person is trying to figure out or say, even if they just come in with a chief complaint, and then you go from there, right? But
Exactly.
you just got to play it by person and continue to work on it. And I think we're all doing a very good job at trying to give you those tools there.
Yes, giving the best recommendations, and that's all we can do. We cannot give medical advice. So, people have asked, what are some common symptoms of cannabis abuse?
So, guys, interesting, right? Cannabis like hyperemesis syndrome, which again, people that may just be overexposed to THC to whatever degree have had that, stomach problem, chronic nausea, things like that. That's probably your most clinical chief situation that you do see. But other than that, looking at preventing some of that toxicity there from cannabis, which again, I want to see if I can share with you guys here on the screen, which would be a lot more helpful than just talking through it. Da, da, da. Cool, guys. So that kind of looks off. Let's do that. So, all right, just chipping away at some of this, guys. Melanie Kane, she's the director of the International Society of Cannabis Pharmacists. This was part of, one of her presentations from like the 2020 clinical cannabis pharmacy conference that they have. So very cool, awesome. Just showing you guys, some good clinical juice here of right things that can happen with cannabis toxicity. Like you can have, not only right the cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, you could be having disease state drug interactions, right, guys? Like looking at things like exacerbating what maybe an underlying mental symptom or cardiovascular, psychiatric, cardiovascular, or respiratory symptom there, which could be signs of cannabis abuse. If you continue to smoke and you have COPD, right, we've got something wrong there, right? That is abuse, especially if things are going wrong. If you got an infection, right, you got to be very careful about that. If you've got your heartbeat, which could be irregular or not, or if you've got chest pain like angina and decompensated heart failure, cannabis could possibly interact with some of the medications that you're on and cause you to have worse effects, whether that's more of a heart attack or whatever else that could be from the imbalance of interacting with medications or the disease state itself. Again, things like pregnancy, that's a person by situation thing right now, and what we do know is it does get passed on. Those who choose to do it, awesome. Not going to shame anybody, but we know it's there. And again, right, you're fighting against Tylenol or whatever else might be passed through, right, breast milk or the placenta. And obviously, my hopes and dreams want to believe that cannabis is a way better option. We just don't necessarily know yet. So I can't sit there and encourage our bud tenders to tell all pregnant people to smoke, right? That is going to be their choice for sure. So again, preventing toxicity, and we're already looking at this, guys. Identifying potential precautions, drug or disease interactions, right? Maybe you're not going to, as a general bud tender or anything, know, hey, well, you have a drug interaction or something with your cannabis, but important to ask, hey, are you on medication? Have you asked your doctor if you can use it? Like those are simple questions that you can ask. But again, how do you stop the abuse in whatever regard that may be with, whether it's hyperemesis or not? Seems as simple as finding the sweet spot, right? Like starting low, going slow, increasing in the 2.5 to 5 milligram THC or CBD doses, increasing THC maybe just in the evenings. You don't want to, go out and be, maybe paranoid or drowsy or whatever that might be during the day when you're functioning and you need that higher level of executive function in your brain. Not to say that some people cannot, function with THC, but some people have recognized, that's my limitation, and that's where they cut it off.
Yeah, sometimes I can't drive with it. Sometimes you can't be in too big of a social setting with it because it sparks your anxiety. Whatever it may be, you have to find your very specific. Whatever your friend can do doesn't mean you can do it too.
Exactly. So that's the sweet spot we're talking about there, guys. Looking at the the sweet spot between, too far and nothing. And it seems so easy to say, and we're going to always continue to harp it until it falls out of our mouths. You've got to start low and go slow, find that effect, find that sweet spot. For those of you who may be experiencing a little bit of cannabis hyperemesis or whatever that might be, maybe you can take it back down to a sweet spot, right? In terms of cannabis abuse, maybe, you could just take it back down. Maybe you're spending too much money on it on top of it all, right? Maybe all of that is a very encouraging thing to go back down to a sweet spot and find that, and looking at, how do you therapeutically modify that, right, guys? These are examples, dosing 1 pill versus 2, or your ratio. Maybe you take it from a THC dominant or a CBD dominant to a balanced ratio, or you change the way that you're doing your routine, whether it's inhaled to swallowed to sublingual, or your timing, right? You can do it in many, many different ways. So again, looking at it, reference ranges about how long the effects would go and things like that. I think most of our staff and everybody kind of has an idea about how to gauge this. Inhaled within 5 minutes, you've got that. Suppository within half an hour, topical within an hour, edible within 3 hours. That's that. But again, side effects as goals of therapy there. So, some people with certain chronic conditions or whatever might want sleep. Some people might want increased appetite if you have cancer, right? You may want dry mouth in a situation where you've got a lot of, salivation going on or whatever that may be. Or, even if you have PTSD, guys, right, which is a very, common underdiagnosed, situation there to help, which disrupts, again, the way you sleep. The way you sleep disrupts the way you even process the world and the way your body heals itself. So, again, that's maybe where cannabis can help, and using those goals to make that happen. And again, looking at different drug interactions from abusing or whatever that may be, THC or CBD, and you look at some of that, here shown on the screen: sleeplessness from THC, confusion, weakness, tachycardia, which is elevated heart rate, dizziness, agitation, restlessness, palpitations. These can happen. Some people probably have experienced this at incredibly high doses, especially if you're that guy at the party that just got tricked into taking a bong tote or whatever that might be. But anyways, where we want to limit that and we want to understand it, you got to know what's on the other side of the equation so that you can thus know how to prevent it, how to avoid it. Again, this is defined of the cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, potential desensitization of this TRPV1 plus CB1 receptor, paradoxical and cyclical presentation. What it's showing: morning sickness, irritability, anorexia, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and people use cannabis to help themselves out of it. But actually, this is one of those where you are in a loop and you have to break that. And it takes about 2 days of THC detox to break that. A week is even better. But, acute cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, severe nausea, vomiting, dehydration, esophageal tears, and compulsive bathing. Compulsive bathing, guys, like, this is so funny. Like, this is crazy. Like, this guy wasn't a roommate of mine, but he was almost a roommate of mine because I was at that house for a long time, like first year of college, 10 years ago or whatever. This guy had this. Is the only time I've truly ever seen like cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. But shoot, if you stay the night at the house, like for whatever, I mean, you always woke up in the morning, you hear this guy puking in the bathroom. He's always taking a shower, which makes me just, it just brings me back to that flashback of all that. And it was just like throwing up and showering all the time. And then more cannabis, and he had a very unhealthy relationship with it, and his body was not, it did not work. It's literally, I've seen this, and sometimes it can be, it's obviously recoverable, but again, got to discontinue it. I think the sweet spot for that is a 2 to 5 day break to reset. But they're on like dopamine receptors and everything. Your receptors just get so up-regulated, and some people's genetic capacity for it, you're not needing to be in those dose ranges. So again, that's that's the answer to that question.
That's your body telling you enough.
Exactly. I don't know what else we have as well.
So in Chaparral, we have, why does CBN make me sleepy? That's from T.
So CBN making sleepy, that's a good question. I don't exactly know the drug, the mechanism of action on that. And I actually don't know if the data actually supports it either, which is interesting enough. CBN has been marketed and priced up. Data, doesn't support it. It's one of those that truly is probably more on your snake oil kind of sales, and that's granted, that's opinion of my own because the data hasn't officially formed there yet. Because there's not even enough THC studies to even make good causes on that. You can't even say obviously THC and CBD for sleep very well. So CBN again on top of that. Weirdly enough, it's the byproduct of the whole extraction process. It's basically kind of the trash material in there,
Wow.
and they mark it up, and that's what makes me just kind of frustrated about that one because it's the most, you're always going to have CBN, whether you have a THC-rich plant, CBD-rich, whatever, CBN comes out.
Seen it.
And so anyways, they mark it up, and they tell you it makes you sleep. And, maybe some people it does, but a lot of times you do notice you'll see it mixed with CBD, melatonin, the whole mix there. So you don't really ever see CBN alone. And I have a funny feeling I know why, because it may just be it may be a false actor there or a bad actor, but not to, if it's working for somebody, not to go and, tell somebody that by any means. Don't do that, guys, because again, the placebo effect is a real thing. The way that you tell people things and the words that you speak there. So don't tell somebody it's not going to work for them. Always encourage and implore people to discover for themselves, and always give them a window of options, because again, you can literally just, you can turn off their own brain to the, accepting that they might be even healed from it by saying the wrong thing. So again, that's a careful line to cross, but we can be good with our words for sure.
Exactly. Are some ways of using cannabis safer than others? That's from April.
And dosage forms. Yes, April. Of course, there are, right, like sublingual is probably going to be some of your top safest ways of using it because, you can gauge your dose response in a good amount of time without having to, inhale it, perhaps damage the lungs a little bit. Edibles theoretically might take a little bit too long sometimes for people to get out of their system. And so when I think about safety, I think about, if somebody is experiencing an effect that they want to be shaken off, maybe sometimes edibles can be a little hard to shake. Ones and things aren't necessarily going to be that, but those who have had an evocable experience, yeah. So in terms of safety, yes, there are different safety profiles in those products, but it also does come to the situation of safety that, you may be considering. So it may not be the type of safety that you like initially thought of or whatever, like, oh, I might burn myself with the lighter to smoke. No, not necessarily that. It just, what is the situation of safety to, capitalize on?
Exactly. So now from Maine, it says, why does flower activate an edible after smoking them?
Layering. So talking a little bit about that, guys. I mean, could be a different experience per whatever cultivar, whatever flower, whatever strain that is. But, that reactivation effect of, entourage effect, all of a sudden your body may just have eaten an edible that's really only got THC or whatever. And all of a sudden you got THC, a little small amount of probably, 10 to 20 other phytocannabinoids and their acidic derivatives plus terpenes, it's going to wake you up. That's where the layering, we do like it for those who need those options as well. But again, be careful because, some people can layer a little too much and you don't want to layer out on the other regard. But we know we've got both novices and experienced veteran users here. So, those of you who may have not considered layering before, try it for sure, especially if you're looking for that extra punch. Maybe you can extend, right, more bang for your buck by layering products versus just smoking one thing, but by stacking, edibles with smoke or, whatever in whatever combo. But, changing those different dosage forms, you can get beneficial effects. Other thing too, one of the only natural ways to truly activate that endocannabinoid system is a runner's high, not from running too hard, but just from a mild jog, faster than a brisk walk. One of the weird things in the world that just, works. And, if you're using cannabis and you can activate a runner's high, your endocannabinoid system is, pristine. So try it, just a food for thought. But
that's awesome.
Pretty much most of our episode today, guys. Shop those $100 O's, Animas, sell the heck out of them. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. And yeah, convert new beginners.
For sure.
1-to-1s, you guys already know what's up. Whoever sells the most.
Layering, try layering. See how when you try your edibles and you smoke after. How does that make you feel? How does it hit? Does it make it feel any different than when you regularly smoke or when you regularly take your edible? Try it out. Help out other clients and see if that's what works for them best. Have a good day.
You guys